just sit down, take a chew and chew my money till we get it. Wow, and it's cool, was ain't talking. Money speak, all that bullshit.
When I was like, maybe like 22-ish, 20, 21, 21.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was 21 at the time. It was the end of the year of me being 21, whatever year that was. I was working at Walton's Fancy and Staple on West 6. And every day we're like...
Sorry, I'm not familiar with Walton's. Is that like a restaurant?
It's Sandra Bullock's flower shop / restaurant / coffee shop.
And you landed a gig there?
Oh, yeah. I got a job. Well, so I was working at 7th Flag, but then I complained a bunch, and the manager just didn't like me, so I was applying to other jobs. And I applied to this place called Walton's. I didn't know what I was applying to. It just said coffee shop, barista needed. Sent in my resume. I show up, and this like kind of pudgier dude named Thor is interviewing me. Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, so I know you work at coffee shop at 7th Flag. I'm really into coffee. You know, I'm actually want to start writing for a coffee blog." And he's like, "I saw Zach, the owner of 7th Flag, over at the Barista Throwdown on Thursday night." And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, why are you losing JT? Because, you know, you had just applied here." And he had told me he didn't know that you were looking to leave 7th Flag and that maybe we could help each other out. And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I saw Zach." And I talked to him, and he said that, you know, you could leave 7th Flag and get a job there. Because I had just gotten fired the day before this from 7th Flag before I actually had my interview go through at Walton's. Yeah. But what had happened was, when I showed up for my interview, the dude that was going to interview me, the manager of the coffee portion of the coffee of the little shop, had already got my resume and then told my current boss that I was looking for a new job. My current boss was like, "Okay, well then you take him if he doesn't want to be loyal to my coffee shop," and then fired me because this dude told him that I was looking for a new job. So halfway through my interview, he says, "Well, I'll call Zach and ask when you can start." Calls my old boss and says, "Hey, yeah, you can start this week if you want." And I was like, "You're a bitch, dude. I hate you." Like, that's the most bullshit ass thing I've ever seen. But I had no option, right? I needed a job. I had just gotten fired the day before. You know what I mean? This guy knew my hand, and he genuinely was not like, he didn't realize how absolutely shitty he was being. But like, I start the job, and right away I tell him I can't work for South by. I work production. Like, that's our busiest time of the year. I'll be working the whole week.
Was this like the day before like the official start of South by?
When did I start there? I started before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So like,
it wasn't like March 10th, right? Yeah. That's good. Like, I'll know where the back door is, and you know, trash pickup. Listen, tomorrow
won't see you for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be seeing you for 2 weeks.
No, I was there for a while. They knew about that, but it fucking sucks. Sandra Bullock sucks. She fucking underpays her workers. She fucking is a horrible person. She's evil. And
she probably thinks because she probably has like an unrealistic expectation of Texas. She's like, "Oh,
Isn't she from Texas?"
I don't give a shit. She lives in Hollywood now.
She lives in Austin.
Not to me.
No, she would come in. She would bring her. One time I called her adopted son, her adopted black baby Playboy, and she gave me a look like no. But yeah, I made her a coffee. They always ask me to make her the coffees because I was best at latte art. Because the manager, Thor, was really jealous because I had actually worked at fancy coffee shops, and he like, there's a type of person that thinks that's like the sickest thing in the world. And like, I'll admit, I was that type of person. I thought that was the sickest thing. I was so into fancy coffee. I still love it. But I'm not a douchebag. I don't want to wear a bow tie. I don't want to spend like $6 on a nice coffee. Suck my dick. I'll get a Keurig. Get out of here. But this fool was about that life. So about it. Oh, it was so cringe. And he'd wear a bow tie to work. The whole shebang. But I made her, you know, I could do Rosetta. So I'd bring her Rosetta. Yeah. But Thor also, like, we're West 6, right? So it's all like business people coming in for lunch, rich people. Very rarely black people would come in. The only time that I can remember a black woman coming in, Thor looked at me and said, "She's a prostitute." And she was just dressed like a normal business person. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "I can tell because she's trying to dress like she would go down to an office here. But she was just like kind of a hot black woman with big tits." And he was like, "But you know she's a prostitute." And I was like, "That's racist, dude. Like, that's so..." And he was like, "That is not racist. I'm Jewish. Like, I know what racism is." And I was like, "Yeah, buddy. Okay."
No, you know what anti-Semitism is.
Yeah. Thor Heimel, you're a bitch. And then he also was like, one time he said, I was talking to my wife and blah, 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 and she's a feminist because I wouldn't date a woman that isn't a feminist. And I was like, "Oh, yeah?" I hear you say like all the time. He goes, well, feminists or not, women can be. And I was like, that's really funny. But then he also had like a woman that worked for him that was like way tiny. You know how like petite women, like really, really tiny ones, some dudes will like really tower over them. This fool always towered over him, would pat her head. And it was I remember one time, dude, her boyfriend, I think they're still together. They met on Tinder when I worked at Walton's, that little girl that he would pat her head. He worked at the snake farm in Bastrop. How tight is that?
Thor did?
Nah, the dude, Thor was a creep that pat on this chick's head.
Yeah.
And her boyfriend worked at a snake farm.
Okay.
I thought that was cool. But yeah, Thor, fucking loser, lost me my job by being a little gossip. Was such a weirdo, big fan of coffee, even though he served absolute bullshit coffee, bad coffee.
Well, wait, so you explained how you lost your job at the old place.
Yeah.
But how did Thor get you fired from Sandra Bullock's place?
I don't know if Thor got me fired. Well, I know he's a chump, and I'd love to fucking rock him. Because he did get me fired from Seventh Flag, and I made a lot of money. I robbed that place blind. I would, because Sandra Bullock owned the place, right?
Yeah.
So people would come in all the time asking about her, and we were just supposed to say like, oh, you know, she's rarely in here. We don't know her, blah, blah, blah. I would always say, oh, that's actually my sister. Or I'd be like, oh, I'm her little brother. Or like, oh, you know, that's my cousin. She actually got me this job. So, and if you're psycho enough to go into a coffee
just
shop
lying
a celebrity
about nepotism.
owns, yeah, if you're psycho enough to go into a coffee shop a celebrity owns and think that they're going to be there, you're psycho enough to believe that I'm related to that celebrity. And so they would buy it. They would all think I'm a Sandra Bullock's kid or whatever. And they started getting reviews on Yelp that would mention me in a positive light, but they would mention, you know, Sandra Bullock's brother or nephew or whatever lie I told them. And then they also had like a comment box, and I would just write really positive comments about myself and put them in there. And so that was the first thing that they're like, hey, you have psycho serial killer handwriting. We know all the things that mention you by name are you. Stop doing that. Also, have you been telling people you're related to Sandra Bullock? And I was like, no. And they were like, okay, because people are describing you, saying the bearded guy with the red beanie and the high voice is saying that he's related to Sandra Bullock. And I'm like, that could be anyone. And then
that could be anyone in here.
It got to the point where they fired me for it. What's funny is I interviewed at Bolden Creek Cafe. And in my interview with Chesley, he's like, why'd you leave your last job? And I was like, they fired me because I kept pretending to be related to Sandra Bullock. And he laughed. He's like, you complained so much it became an issue. And I was like, yeah, I said it so much it became an issue. And he's like, okay, that's pretty funny. But fucking at Walton's, I do my South by time. I come back. And then one of the managers, who was like kind of a white supremacist, but she really liked me. We got along. But she would always say Irish power. And I'd be like, okay, I feel like you want to say something, but you won't. And she'd also mention about how her dad was in prison and things were different in there. And I'm like, yeah, I know what you're saying without saying it. You're saying that like in prison, white people and black people don't pretend to be friends. And out here they do. I feel like that's what because you know how like it's mad racially segregated in prison?
Yeah.
People will act like that's like the natural order of things. And it's like, no, prison is not the natural order of things. Like that is not how things are supposed to use psycho. But that's kind of her vibe. But honestly, well, one time she said she doesn't hire bus people. And I was like, what? And she's like, I don't hire people that take a bus. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah,
she doesn't hire bus people.
That's a barrel of worms.
Yeah, but she told me, she was like, yo, I took a look at the schedule and you're definitely not on it next week. So you might want to talk to management about what's going on. And I was like, oh, I'm fired without being fired. And so I go in and...
Did you say that to her?
Yeah, but she was like, she knew. She was like, she was being tight. Like, all of her white supremacist shit aside, she was being tight to me. Well, I'm white, so I think that's probably big part of the reason why she liked me.
Yeah.
I would sing Irish songs all day, and she loved them. She loved the Irish songs I would sing. She thought that was cool. She would always say Irish power and Irish pride, though. And I'm like, I don't disagree with that statement, especially since she was like very Irish. But it's like the vibe.
Was she Irish?
Not from Ireland. She was like a me amount of Irish, where it's like my blood's Irish, but I'm, from California.
Fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It was weird. Nice lady. Couldn't remember her name. Wouldn't be able to pick her up out of a lineup. But I go up to the manager whose name was Bart. And funny story, I'll tell you in a minute. But Bart was sitting at his desk, and I was like, hey, so it looks like I'm not on the schedule next week. What does that mean? And he wouldn't look back at me, and he said, what do you want me to say? And I was like, well, what does that mean, man? Like, what is that about? And like, he wouldn't look behind him and like just shook his head from behind him. And I was like, okay, dude, go fuck yourself. I'm out of here. And then after I walked around like the little wall, the half wall that separates the desk and him, then he stood up and said, what'd you say to me? And I was like, I said, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And he was like, what was that? And I was like, go fuck yourself. And I start laughing. And he goes, you want to say that again? And I was like, go fuck yourself, Bart. Go fuck yourself. And so he comes around the little half wall and he's like, do you want to say that one more time? And I was like, I said, go fuck yourself, dude. Like, there's no way he's going to hit me in Sandra Bullock's restaurant. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like, get out. Like, make my day, dude. I'll sue you and Sandra Bullock. Please hit me for saying go fuck yourself, former employer. And so I was like, and he's like, get the fuck out of here. And I was like, yo, Bart. And he was like, what? And I was like, can I please use you as a reference? He lost his fucking shit. He's like, fuck you. Get the fuck out right now. And I'm like dying. And Jane, Chris Castle's girlfriend, I worked with her at the time. She was working there. And she's trying not to laugh, looking at me because she heard the whole thing. And I was like, Jane, you need to take care of Bart. He is losing it right now. She won't look at me, and like no one will look at me. And I'm like, is anyone seeing this? I leave.
Is this in the middle of the place, or is it like back room?
In the middle of the place. I walked through the lobby, and he's like, don't you ever come back. And I was like, well, we'll talk. I was like, I'm going to use you as a reference. Kept making that joke. He hated me. Here's the thing is on Mondays, he would close to do all the little miniature stuff. Mm-hmm. And there was an alley door he would leave in. And not every Monday, but like 4 or 5 random Mondays after that, I would just stand across the alley and watch him walk to his little fucking car. He was so scared. I would just intimidate my old manager.
Are you psychotic?
That is a psycho thing to do. I was like, yeah, I was pretty crazy when I was younger. Well, that was like, I was 21, man. That was evil me. I'm a child of God now. I couldn't imagine doing anything like that now. But yeah, he acted like he was going to fight me and didn't. And he would have whipped my ass too. But, you know, I was young, dumb, and full of cum, babe.
Ready to play the legal game.
Oh, man. Could you imagine if I would have been fucking retired. That's the thing, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I would have loved.
You probably would have shut that place down, to be honest.
Yeah, I would be Sandra Bullock's husband.
Legally.
A couple years later, I'm talking to this dude that also works at Walton's. I tell him that story, and he's like, yo, Evan told me that. Evan, who's now running for some political office in Cincinnati, he moved back home. Mm-hmm. He was like, yo, Evan told me that story. That's crazy, blah, blah, blah. We chit-chatted about it. And he's like, you know, Bart ended up actually going and fucking himself, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was using company time the entire time he was on the computer. Mm-hmm. He was just doing sports gambling online.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, that is the funniest thing. And like, he got like dragged in front of the whole company for it, and everyone knew about it. It was a very public firing because he found out and tried to cover his tracks, and it was like a whole thing. And I was like, that's so good. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just, the cherry on top is if he was using company money to gamble.
Yeah. I don't want to say that because I don't think that's what it was. It borderlines that. Well, he's using company time. I don't know, wage theft, blah blah blah, whatever that is.
We don't believe in that.
No, I don't. Wage theft's a thing. Well, we believe in time theft. We don't believe in time theft.
Yeah,
wage theft is a thing because they not paying enough. They're taking our wages, all of us, everybody. Well, no matter what your job is, they should pay you more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Fact. So I got fired because Thor told on me, and he sucks.
Oh, so Thor was just telling Bart like, hey, this guy's not stopping.
No. I got fired from 7th Flag because Thor told on me.
Okay.
And then I got fired from...
that was like an indirect, like...
I was probably going to get fired from 7th Flag sooner or later, but he told on me for looking for a new job, and then pretty much I got traded like between teams. Like
you got drafted.
Yeah, the owners decided, okay, he'll work there now. They decided my start date between each other. So that was lame. And then I got fired from Walton's for pretending to be related to Sandra Bullock. And fuck Thor.
Do you think Sandra ever like heard that, I don't know, stories or just like, hey, there's this guy who's working here and like he keeps saying he's related to you in some way and like customers are believing him?
I would imagine, yeah.
You think she heard you?
Her like best friend, personal assistant, the guy that manages it, Raphael, he definitely knew. So I imagine he told her. But the thing about Raphael is he had this photo on his Facebook that another guy there showed me, where it's him dressed in a Nazi costume, doing a curtsy, watering his flowers. And he's in an interracial relationship. Like, he's a gay guy. Maybe he's not anymore. I feel like he was in an interracial relationship. So I don't know if it was a gay thing or not. I mean, not a gay thing. It was definitely a gay thing. He's a gay guy. I don't know if it was like a race thing or not, or if he was trying to be ironic. People were more down to be ironic about fascism before Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before like 2015, 2014, people were way more down to be ironic about fascism. You just saw it more. It was more appropriate, you know?
I don't know if it was more appropriate, but just, yeah, I guess it's, you know, when Trump actually got the primary and then the election, people were like, oh no, like, some people actually don't know this is ironic. Like, we just need to cut this shit entirely.
I don't like Trump, but I don't think he was a fascist. I think fascism is like a hard line definition thing, though, where it's like if you directly control both commerce and it's in direct, you know, influence of the state, you know, it's for the purpose of the state, then I'm like, okay, that sounds like fascism. I think he was a bitch that did lame shit. I think they're all lame, man.
Yeah.
I think they're all lame. I think if I can kick your ass, you should not be allowed to be president. You know?
What if they can bench more than you?
It's most people. But yeah. Yeah, if you can bench more than me and kick my ass, that absolutely should put you in the running to be president. If you can't do either of those things, you should immediately be kicked out of the running. You should be like, hey, go back to basics there, big dog.
Yeah.
If you haven't even met the JT level of like physical stamina, you know what I mean? If you're going to war with anyone and JT could beat you, you're out. You never stood a chance.
Talking big shit. Talking big shit, big shit, big shit. Talking big shit.
I got fired from a hotel for dogs because I got my jaw broken.
I'm sorry, what?
When I got my jaw broken, I went in and I was like, yo, I just got my jaw broken. I can't work. And they were like, okay, well, finish out your shift for today. And then it's your last day here. And I was like, well, I'm not going to finish out my shift, obviously. And they were like, that's really screwing over your coworkers. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, but that's like the dumbest fucking thing I've like.
Especially I had my jaw like hanging out. I haven't even gotten my surgery yet. What's funny is my boss was like, I went to high school with a guy that got jaw surgery and went to prom that night. So I know you can get your jaw wired shut and then come to work. I was like, you make a good point, Vanessa.
That story really inspired me. I will finish out my work day. But of course, you had to like type it up in like a digital speaker because your jaw was broken.
Yeah, man.
No, I've always heard those stories where it's like, oh, that really sucks. Well, like you got a few more hours on your shift, so just finish that out and then you can go home. Because I've had that happen where it's like, hey man, like I'm throwing up and like I really can't be working right now. And they're like, oh man, that really sucks. It's like, well, you know, there's a couple more hours in your shift, like just power through it and then, you know, take the rest of the day off. It's like, oh, so basically you want me to just finish out my shift as if it was a normal day.
One time I shit my pants when I had diarrhea and I was at Bolden Creek Cafe and I went and told my boss, I was like, yo dude, I'm in the bathroom right now. I just shit my pants. And he was like, okay, run home, clean up, come back, do your side work. And I was like, sick. That was a fair enough deal. I was just like, okay, I do have to come home. But I thought that was really funny. He was like, if you think you're getting out of your side work because you shit your pants, you have another thing coming. I did once work with a girl who was like, hey, I got bit by a mosquito. Is there any way I could take the earlier cut? And I was like, no. What are you talking about? You got bit by a mosquito? That's awesome. That's an awesome excuse.
Nah, babe. One of like my first jobs, I was a junior in high school, and there was a Jimmy John's that just opened up down the street from my school, and I was just like, yeah, like I want to make money. I have a car, like fuck it. And so I started a week later because you know they're like, yeah, we pay minimum wage. As long as you can handle cold cuts and bread, like you'll do fine. But basically the first day there, the guy gave me like the schedule for next week already, and he had me scheduled like during school hours. And I told him, hey dude, like, you know, I'm only 16. Like I'm going to be in class at 2:00. He's like, oh, he's like, well, you can leave early, right? And I was like, no. And basically, like, it just completely went over his head that it's like, no, I'm a student. I can only work these certain hours because I'm going to be in class.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he was like, yeah, I'll change it tonight, and then I'll give you a new one tomorrow. So I go in for my second day. He gives me the new schedule, and he only changed like one of the days. It was like the Monday one. And I was like, hey, this is still wrong. Like, I need to be doing like afternoons and like evening shifts. And I was like, and I was even like, but on weekends, like I'm free for whatever. He's like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'll change it, whatever. And I had already learned it's like, oh, we don't make tips here, but we make minimum wage. So I was like, fuck this.
They don't get tips at Jimmy John's?
When I was working there, they didn't.
That's insane.
The only way you could get tips is if you were like a delivery driver. And for some reason, they would only let like the assistant manager do deliveries at the time. I was like, that's fucked.
That's so fucked.
And so on my third day of work, I woke up 10 minutes before my shift started, called the shop, and I was like, hey, Jeremy, it's Robert. I was like, this isn't going to work out. And like, he kind of paused for a second. He's like, all right, well, I get it, man. He's like, I'll still pay you for the 2 days you worked. Just come by next week and I'll cut a check. And because it was my first job, I was like, yeah, and like, I'll wash my uniform and bring it back to you. He's like, oh, you don't have to do that. And I was literally like, what am I supposed to do with a Jimmy John's uniform? And he's like, that's for you to find out, and hung up.
Wow, so they let you keep it and they didn't charge you?
Yeah, but it's like 2 black t-shirts and then a baseball hat.
Mm.
And part of me was like, damn, like if they're just letting them, like I could go do a robbery in this and then fucking put the blame on Jimmy John's. Go do a hit on a Subway and be like, Jimmy Gang.
Jimmy Gang, gang, gang.
Yeah.
Man, I've been fired I got fired from that place. It was Dominican Joe's, but then got caught by Benu, another coffee shop. And they were like, I had to go out of town, and I was like, oh, I'll be out of town these days. And they were like, okay, well, you have to do training shifts. And this whole thing where I was like, you can't work these shifts until you have training shifts. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have my training shifts done. And then they expect me to show up for those shifts. And I was like, well, you told me I couldn't work them. And they just really wanted to fire every single person that worked at the place that they had bought. Because the guy, Steve, that owned Benu, he got his money from stealing all his money from Epoch, and like everyone knows it. And that's why he was super intense about like not stealing from the register, and like made like a billion rules on like how to count the money. And it's like, yeah, it's because you stole so much from your last job to open up this place.
It's because you know how to steal from a register.
Then he interviewed each one of us to ask if anyone had heard anything negative about them before we got started. And he was like, does anyone feel like, they're not excited to work for us? And I was like, no, I feel like, some people might be nervous about change, but we're all excited to, work for Benu now. And he's like, okay, well, who specifically said that? And I was like, no one comes to mind. And he's like, who said that they're nervous for change? I was like, I don't know. He goes, like, was it Mason? And I was like, I don't think so. And he's like, was it Rachel? And I was like, no, I don't. He's like, tell me who said that. His wife is like, yeah, I'll get us some coffee real quick. His wife stands up. He goes, hey man, we're friends. You can tell me who's saying that type of thing. But they fired me, and I tweeted a photo of them, how they brew their iced coffee. So I got back at them. It's disgusting. They brew it through a dish rack.
Ugh.
And then, of course, I got fired from Juiceland because I called that customer Playboy.
Was it Sandra Bullock's son?
Yeah, for real. No, here's the thing. Called this guy Playboy. His name's Cody. And called him Playboy. He sent an email in saying, I asked not to be called Playboy. He's calling me Playboy. Juristic manager came in, said it was the same as calling a woman honey. And I was like, I don't think that's the case, but okay. And then he comes back in again, shows me his credit card, or he's paying with his credit card. And I say, remind me your name. And he says, it's on the credit card, because he doesn't want to tell me his name for some reason. He doesn't want me to call him Playboy, but he also won't let me know his name.
Yeah.
And I said, sorry, I don't know how to read. And then because of that joke, he sent another email in, and I got fired. And he has gotten spit in his smoothie every single time he's gone back, I guarantee you.
Good.
Yeah. It's such a wild thing to do, to be. He's like a millionaire real estate guy. I looked him up. He just wanted to make sure that this smoothie guy lost his job. And hey, he won. Good job, Cody. Good job winning. You got me there.
Yeah.
You got me there. But I think that's all the times I've been fired. My first firing was Yellow Bill. And then moved here, and I got fired from that hotel for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I got fired from Seventh Flag. And then after that, I got fired from Walton's. And then after I got fired from Walton's, I think it was just Binu and Juiceland since then. 7 times. I think I've been fired 7 times. I might be missing one. I could be forgetting a job I got fired from. Oh, I mean, I no-showed at a place at the airport called Hamas. It was like called Hamas Coffee, HMAS. And I got the job and I no-showed. Just made me nervous smoking weed every day.
That was for the better, though.
Yeah. Because I smoke weed at work, right? And so, like, going into the airport just seemed so, terrifying.
Get a dog jumping on you at 5 a.m.
No, thank you, Hamas.
One of my buddies from high school, he and, like, another group of friends, they all got jobs together at, like, the McDonald's in town. And what was funny is, like, these guys were friends because they were neighbors, so it's like they didn't always kind of match up personality or like work ethic wise. Mm-hmm. And so the main guy, Mike, like he was in band, like really solid dude, and like he was like, yeah, I'm getting this job because I want to make money and like just kind of get gumption or whatever they fucking call it. So like he showed up, did all the training, like he worked there for like a couple of years in high school. His other buddies that joined with him at the same time that were his neighbors, one of them didn't show up on the first day of work and then called the next day to say, yeah, fuck this, I quit. And they're like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking sure, and hung up.
Sick.
And the other guy, he got fired 3 weeks in because he wouldn't stop hitting on like the other like high school girls that were working there.
He was in high school too, though, right?
Yeah, but it was like they were like juniors and seniors. Mm-hmm. These girls were like sophomores. Like they were younger than him. Mm-hmm. And so they were just like, yeah, we're not comfortable with, let's call him Brian. Like, we're not comfortable with Brian, like always trying to talk to us when we're trying to like, work the registers. And so the manager was like, hey, is this true? Like, are you not doing your work? You're just here to cruise on chicks. And he was like, why would I want to cruise on chicks at McDonald's? He's like, I don't know. You tell me. And he like pulled up like the comment cards, like the girls had submitted. And he's like, all right. He's like, yeah. He's like, I won't come in next week.
Nice.
Fucking called him out.
See, that's why I try to stack in my favor. Like, the only time I've seen comic
stuff
cards,
in the ballot.
I just stuff the ballot. Hey, JT's great. That guy with the beard's great. I love that handsome, smart, nice man guy. That guy's man. That guy's good. Good move.
That's what I used to do when I was doing tech support for a few months at the beginning of the year.
You would give yourself positive reviews?
No, I would basically do shit that the company didn't want me to do for the customer, but I was like, hey, I'm not really supposed to go in and like change the code on your website and just fix it for you. But if you promise to leave me a 10 out of 10 review, like I'll hook you up right now.
Nice.
And it was like the same meeting I had with my supervisor where I was like, yeah, tomorrow's my last day. He was like, oh. I was like, yeah, I was just like, this isn't a good fit for me. And he's like, oh, okay, well, I guess what I wanted to meet with you is pointless. And I was like, oh, what was that? And he's like, yeah, I've been listening back to your calls, and it's like you're doing like these like hookup deals with all of your like all your callers. I was like, oh, yeah. And he was just like, yeah, like you're not, he's like, we tell you to not touch the code because like, they're just like, we don't train you to like, work HTML or like anything like that. So like, we don't want to be responsible for like crashing a website because we coded it wrong. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, oh, well, I was just like, like I just wanted to make sure I got good reviews at the end of the month. And he's like, yeah, I get that. But like, you still got to follow our rules. I was like, well, I don't have to anymore.
Not after tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, and he was chill. He's like, yeah, that's true. Like if you're leaving tomorrow, then who gives a fuck?
I see the wood cause the top is missing. I sleep on dreams cause it's paper I'm chasing. My roots come from Texas, this inflation. On the side, on the side, one the side, on the side, on the side, on the side, one the side. On the side, on the side, on the side.